Elena whispered, "I came to kill you." Lorenzo didn't even blink. "I know," he replied. She tightened her grip on the gun. "Then why do you want to marry me?" He took one step closer and said, "Because it's the only way you survive." Elena had spent her entire life believing Lorenzo De Luca was the ruthless mafia billionaire who murdered her family. She came to his mansion expecting bloodshed. Instead, she walked into a proposal that made no sense, a proposal that would unravel every lie she'd believed for the past 25 years. 3 months earlier. Before the wedding. Before the lies. Before she questioned everything she believed. If stories filled with love, betrayal, shocking twists, and hidden truths are your kind of escape, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Velvet Whisk Stories and become part of a community that loves unforgettable stories. Now, let's go back to where it all began. Elena Carter stood in front of a weathered gravestone on a quiet hillside cemetery. Fresh white lilies rested at its base. She brushed a few fallen leaves away with gentle fingers. "I'll finish what you couldn't," she whispered. "I promise." She wasn't speaking to the dead. She was speaking to herself. The promise had become the center of her life. For 15 years, she'd carried the same name in her heart like poison. Lorenzo De Luca. The man she'd been taught was responsible for destroying her family. The man she'd sworn would one day pay for it. A black luxury sedan rolled to a stop behind her. Victor Kane stepped out, holding a single black umbrella. Even in the rain, he looked composed. Elegant. Safe. Like the only person she could still trust. "Still talking to them?" he asked softly. Elena nodded without looking back. "I always do before I make an important decision." Victor smiled sadly. "They would be proud of the woman you've become." Those words had comforted her for years. Today, they felt heavier than usual. Victor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Our source finally confirmed it." She turned. "Lorenzo." Victor nodded. "He's returning to New York tomorrow." Her heartbeat quickened. After 15 years, the opportunity had finally arrived. Victor reached into his coat and handed her a thin folder. Inside were photographs, business meetings, private security routes, charity galas, a wedding invitation. Elena frowned. "A wedding?" Victor's smile barely changed. "No." He looked directly into her eyes. "An opportunity." The annual De Luca Foundation Gala was unlike anything Elena had imagined. Crystal chandeliers, world leaders, celebrities, billionaires. To the public, Lorenzo De Luca wasn't a criminal. He was a respected billionaire, philanthropist, and CEO. His smile appeared on magazine covers. His company employed thousands. No one in the ballroom would ever guess another side of his life existed. Elena blended effortlessly into the crowd, posing as an investigative journalist with forged credentials. Every movement had been rehearsed. Every question planned. She watched Lorenzo from across the room. He greeted guests politely. Never laughed too loudly. Never drank more than a single glass. Always aware of every entrance and exit. Not arrogant. Disciplined. Dangerously controlled. Nothing like the monster she'd imagined. Victor's voice echoed in her memory. The most dangerous predators never need to raise their voices. A waiter brushed past Elena. She took the champagne flute from his tray and continued toward Lorenzo. One conversation. One distraction. That was all she needed to plant the tracking device hidden beneath his table. As she approached, Lorenzo turned before she spoke. Almost as though he'd sensed her. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the ballroom disappeared. Something flickered across his face. Recognition. It vanished so quickly she wondered if she'd imagined it. "Miss Carter," he said. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't introduced herself. "You know who I am." His expression remained unreadable. "I make it my business to know everyone who attends my events." A reasonable answer. Yet something about it felt rehearsed. She forced a polite smile. "I'm writing an article about the foundation." "I'm sure you are." His response carried the faintest hint of amusement. Then, without warning, he said something that completely shattered her expectations. "I have a proposal." Elena blinked. "I'm sorry. I'd like you to marry me." Silence. The music continued. Champagne glasses clinked. No one around them seemed aware that the world had just tilted. She searched his face for signs of mockery. Found none. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. But another thought rose just as quickly. If she married him, she wouldn't have to chase the most powerful man in the city. She would live beside him, learn his routines, find his weaknesses, destroy him from within. She looked into his eyes. Cold. Impossible to read. "Why me?" she asked. He paused just long enough to make the silence uncomfortable. "Because I trust you." The answer made no sense. And that was exactly what frightened her. That night, Elena met Victor in his private study. The room smelled of old books and expensive whiskey. She paced while Victor listened. "He asked me to marry him." Victor remained perfectly still. As expected. She stopped packing. "You knew." "I suspected." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to know whether he'd choose you." His calmness unsettled her. "Victor, none of this makes sense." He walked to the fireplace. "Lorenzo never makes random decisions." "Exactly. So if he's inviting you into his home." Victor turned slowly. "He's made his first mistake." She stared at the dancing flames. "I'll be living with the man who murdered my parents." Victor's voice softened. "And you'll finally have the chance to make him answer for it." He opened a small velvet box. Inside lay a simple wedding ring. Hidden beneath the diamond. A tiny compartment. Small enough to conceal a microtransmitter. Or something far more lethal. Victor closed the box and placed it in Elena's hand. "You've waited 15 years. His gaze held hers. "Don't lose your nerve now." Elena looked down at the ring. The symbol of a marriage. Or the perfect disguise for revenge. She closed her fingers around it. "I'll marry him." Outside the window, a black SUV sat unnoticed across the street. Inside, Lorenzo watched the house through rain-speckled glass. Beside him, Sophia Romano lowered a pair of binoculars. She accepted, Sophia said quietly. Lorenzo didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Finally he spoke. "Increase her security." Sophia looked at him. "She thinks you're the danger." "I know. Shouldn't you tell her the truth?" Lorenzo's eyes remained fixed on the house. "Not yet. What if she never forgives you?" He closed his eyes for the briefest moment. "If I tell her now." His voice was barely above a whisper. "She won't live long enough to hate me." Sophia fell silent. Far away, hidden behind another parked car, a third man lowered his camera after photographing Lorenzo's SUV. He smiled as he sent the pictures to an unknown number. A text appeared almost instantly. Phase 1 complete. The sender's name was hidden, but someone else had been watching both of them all along. 3 weeks after the wedding, the DeLuca estate overlooked the Hudson River like an ancient fortress hidden behind wealth. To the outside world, it was the home of one of America's most powerful billionaire families. Inside, it felt more like a beautifully decorated prison. Every hallway had discreet security cameras. Every entrance was guarded. Every employee moved with military precision. Elena stood on the balcony outside her bedroom, gripping a porcelain coffee cup she hadn't touched. She had counted 27 security cameras, 34 armed guards, 8 blind spots, 2 emergency exits. Every day she memorized another piece of Lorenzo's empire. Not because she admired it, because one day she intended to destroy it. The balcony door slid open behind her. Without turning around, she spoke. "I told the staff I didn't want breakfast." "I know." Only one person answered that calmly. Lorenzo. He stepped onto the balcony carrying 2 coffee cups. He handed one toward her. She didn't take it. "You don't drink coffee after midnight," he said. "You sleep badly afterward." Elena frowned. "I never told you that." "You didn't have to." She studied him carefully. "How do you know?" Instead of answering, he placed the untouched cup beside her and walked away. Leaving her with another question he refused to explain. Later that afternoon, Elena visited the DeLuca Foundation headquarters, insisting on touring the charity programs as Lorenzo's wife. Television cameras followed. Children laughed. Donors applauded. Everything appeared perfect. Too perfect. She noticed Lorenzo quietly slipping away from the crowd. Curiosity overpowered caution. She followed him down a private service corridor. The hallway was empty. Almost. A maintenance worker pushed a large cleaning cart toward Lorenzo. Nothing unusual. Elena noticed something. The man's shoes. Military combat boots. Not maintenance shoes. His hands. Too steady. His eyes. Locked onto Lorenzo. The cart suddenly tipped. A silenced pistol slid into the attacker's hand. Everything happened in seconds. "Lorenzo," Elena shouted. The assassin fired. Before Elena could move, Lorenzo spun. Not away from danger. Toward her. He wrapped one arm around her waist and pulled her behind a marble column. The bullet shattered the stone where her head had been. Security rushed forward. The attacker disappeared into the chaos. Silence followed. Elena looked at Lorenzo. "You." He checked her shoulder for injuries before answering. "Are you hurt?" She stared at him. "You saved me." His expression remained unreadable. "The bullet wasn't meant for me." Her heartbeat slowed. "What?" He glanced down the hallway. "It was aimed at you." Before she could ask another question, his phone rang. He answered without looking away from the corridor. "Lock the building down." His voice turned cold. "No one leaves." That evening, rain tapped softly against the mansion windows. Elena sat alone in the library, replaying every second in her mind. The assassin. The angle. The shot. Lorenzo's reaction. If the bullet had truly been meant for Lorenzo, why had he moved toward her instead of taking cover himself? The library door opened. Sophia Romano entered carrying a stack of documents. She stopped. "I didn't know anyone was here. I was just thinking." Sophia nodded politely. You should get some rest. Elena watched her carefully. You've worked with Lorenzo for years. I have. Does he always throw himself in front of bullets? Sophia almost smiled. He has unfortunate habits. Elena leaned forward. Why? Sophia hesitated. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. Ask him. I did. And he refused to answer. Sophia lowered her eyes. Then there was probably a reason. Before Elena could respond, Sophia quietly left, leaving more questions than answers. Several nights later, Elena wandered the East Wing after midnight. She had discovered something unusual. One hallway remained locked at all hours. No servants entered. Even security avoided it. As she examined the electronic keypad, she heard footsteps. She quickly slipped behind a marble pillar. Lorenzo approached alone. He entered a code. The heavy steel door unlocked. Before it closed, Elena caught a brief glimpse inside. Shelves, old files, photographs, a small wooden rocking horse, children's drawings. The room looked personal, not like a mafia archive. The door shut. Minutes later, Lorenzo emerged carrying a worn leather folder. His face looked different. Not cold. Not calculating. Heartbroken. He quietly locked the room again and disappeared into the darkness. Elena waited until he was gone, then approached the keypad. She reached for it. A voice behind her spoke calmly. You won't get in. She spun around. Lorenzo stood only a few feet away. He had returned without making a sound. She folded her arms. What are you hiding? He looked at the door, then back at her. The past. She searched his face. My past. Silence. Just long enough to make her think he might answer. Instead, he simply walked away. The next morning, Victor arrived unexpectedly for breakfast. He embraced Elena warmly. You look tired. I haven't been sleeping. Nightmares. She nodded. Victor glanced toward Lorenzo, who was speaking with his security chief across the room. Has he hurt you? No. Victor frowned. No. He saved my life. Victor's expression changed for only a fraction of a second. So quickly Elena almost missed it. Surprise. Then concern returned. Sometimes dangerous men rescue people. Victor said gently, to make them lower their guard. His explanation made sense. It should have settled her doubts. Instead, it deepened them. Before leaving, Victor slipped a small envelope into Elena's hand. Don't let Lorenzo see this. After Victor drove away, she opened it inside her bedroom. A single photograph slid onto the bed. It showed a much younger Lorenzo, standing outside an orphanage. Beside him, a little girl with long chestnut hair. The girl's face was turned away from the camera. Written across the back in faded ink were 4 words. She must never know. Elena's breathing slowed. She looked back at the photograph. The little girl's sweater. It looked painfully familiar. Had she seen it before? Or was her mind trying to make connections that weren't there? Downstairs, Lorenzo looked up toward the second-floor window, as if he somehow knew exactly what she had just discovered. His expression hardened. Not with anger, with fear. The photograph stayed on Elena's bedside table. She had looked at it at least 50 times. Every time the same questions returned. Why would Lorenzo be standing outside an orphanage? Who was the little girl? And why had someone written? She must never know. She picked it up again. This time, she noticed something she'd missed before. The photograph wasn't torn. It had been carefully cut. Someone had deliberately removed another person from the picture. Her pulse quickened. Someone didn't want her to see the complete truth. The following afternoon, Elena drove alone to the city archives. If Lorenzo had truly murdered her parents 15 years ago, there had to be police reports, court files, witness statements, something. After nearly 2 hours of searching, an elderly archivist approached her desk. "Can I help you? I'm looking for the Carter homicide investigation." He typed into his computer. His smile faded. "That's strange." "What?" "The original investigation file isn't here. It was removed." He frowned. "It says it was transferred." "Transferred where?" "No destination listed." Elena's stomach tightened. Government files didn't simply disappear. Someone with enormous influence had erased them. As she left the archives, she noticed a black sedan parked across the street. The driver wore sunglasses. The engine was running. Watching. The moment she stepped into traffic, a speeding truck ignored the red light. Its horn blared. Everything happened at once. A powerful hand grabbed her coat. She was yanked backward onto the sidewalk. The truck thundered past, missing her by inches. She spun around. "Lorenzo." He released her arm. "You need to stop investigating this." She pulled away. "You followed me. I protected you. I don't need your protection." "No." His eyes searched hers. "You just keep surviving because of it." Before she could answer, he walked back to his waiting car, leaving her furious and more confused than ever. That evening, for the first time since their marriage, they ate dinner alone. No staff, no meetings, no security interruptions, only silence. Elena finally set down her fork. "I'm tired." Lorenzo looked up. "Of what?" "Not knowing what's real." He remained quiet. She leaned forward. "Every answer you give creates 3 more questions." "I know. You knew me before we met." Silence. "You recognized me at the gala." Silence. "You knew how I drink my coffee." Silence. "You knew where I'd be today." Another silence. Finally, he spoke. "I know more about you than you realize." She stared at him. "Then tell me." His fingers tightened around his wine glass. "I can't. Or you will." He looked away for the first time. "If I tell you too soon." His voice became almost painfully quiet. "I'll lose you forever." Elena laughed bitterly. "You already have." "Before we uncover the next secret, I want to hear from you. Right now, who do you trust the most? Elena, Lorenzo, or Victor? Drop your answer and your theory in the comments. I read them all, and some of them might even inspire future stories here on Velvet with Stories. Now, let's see what Elena finds next. She stood and walked away. Lorenzo remained seated. He didn't stop her. But after she disappeared upstairs, he quietly whispered to the empty room, "I'm trying not to." The next morning, Sophia found Elena standing alone in the mansion gardens. The roses had just begun to bloom. Neither woman spoke immediately. Finally, Sophia handed Elena a small brass key. Elena frowned. "What's this?" "It opens a safety deposit box." "Whose?" Sophia hesitated. "I can't tell you." Then why are you giving it to me? Because. She looked toward the mansion. You're running out of time. Elena studied her. Why are you helping me? Sophia smiled sadly. I'm helping someone who deserves the truth. Before Elena could ask another question, Sophia walked away. The bank vault was silent. Cold. Almost intimidating. The manager unlocked the private deposit box and left Elena alone. Inside, she expected money, jewelry, documents. Instead, she found a worn leather journal, a silver necklace with a child's initials engraved on the back, and a sealed envelope. Across the front, someone had written, "For Elena." Her hands trembled. She broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. She recognized Lorenzo's signature immediately. The letter was old. Years old. It read, "If you're reading this, then I've failed to protect you." Her breathing became uneven. She kept reading. "Everything you've been told about your parents." She stopped. The next page was missing. Torn out. Completely gone. Only jagged paper remained. Someone had removed the most important part. A second note fell from the envelope. It wasn't written by Lorenzo. Only 6 typed words appeared. "Stop looking or she'll die." Elena froze. She looked around the empty vault. Someone had opened this box before she did. Someone knew she would come. Someone was always one step ahead. That night, Elena walked straight into Lorenzo's private office. She threw the torn letter onto his desk. "I found your safety deposit box." His face changed instantly. "Who gave you the key?" "Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" He stared at the missing page. Someone had taken it. His expression darkened. "They've started moving." "They?" He looked at her. Really looked at her. As though weighing whether this was finally the moment. "Elena." She stepped closer. "No more secrets." He slowly stood. His eyes filled with something she'd never seen before. Fear. Not for himself. For her. "I should have told you years ago." Her heartbeat pounded. He took one slow breath. Then, the office windows exploded inward. Glass shattered across the room. Masked gunmen opened fire. Lorenzo lunged across the desk, tackling Elena to the floor just as bullets ripped through the wall behind them. "Stay down," he shouted. Security alarms erupted throughout the mansion. Outside, black SUVs surrounded the estate. Inside, the attack had only just begun. As Lorenzo shielded Elena with his own body, she looked up at him. For the first time, she no longer believed he was protecting himself. She believed he was protecting her. But why? Gunfire echoed through every wing of the DeLuca estate. Marble shattered. Windows exploded. The once peaceful mansion had become a battlefield. Lorenzo kept one arm around Elena's shoulders as they moved through a hidden corridor concealed behind his office bookshelf. She stumbled. He caught her before she fell. "Can you run?" She nodded. "What about you?" A thin line of blood ran down his forehead from flying glass. "It's not mine." She knew he was lying. She could see the blood soaking through the sleeve of his jacket. He'd been hit. Yet he never slowed down. Ahead of them, Sophia waited beside a reinforced steel door. "The West Wing has fallen," she reported, breathing hard. "How many?" "At least 20 armed men." Lorenzo frowned. "They're not here to take the house." He looked at Elena. They're here for you. The words settled heavily between them. Before Elena could respond, the emergency lights flickered again. The hidden corridor shook with another explosion. Dust rained from the ceiling. Sophia opened the steel door. Go, I'll hold this entrance. No, Lorenzo said immediately. You'll never make it if we all stay together. Sophia looked at Elena. For the first time, her calm expression softened. Whatever happens next. She managed a faint smile. Don't stop believing your instincts. Then she slammed the steel door shut behind them. Seconds later, gunfire erupted on the other side. The secret passage led deep beneath the mansion. At its end stood the same reinforced door Elena had tried to open weeks earlier. Lorenzo entered a 12-digit code. The heavy vault door unlocked with a deep metallic sound. Inside, there were no weapons, no stacks of cash, no evidence of a criminal empire. Instead, the room resembled a museum of memories. Shelves filled with old photo albums, children's books, birthday cards, a tiny pink knitted sweater, a music box, crayon drawings, a framed photograph of a smiling woman holding a little girl. The girl's face was turned away. Elena slowly walked through the room. None of it made sense. She picked up one of the drawings. Across the bottom, written in a child's handwriting, were the words, "For Uncle Renzo." She looked up. Who is Renzo? Lorenzo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to a large fireproof safe built into the wall. He placed his hand against the scanner. The safe clicked open. Inside lay only one thick envelope. Its seal had never been broken. Across the front was written, "Open only when Elena is safe." She stared at the envelope. "My name." His voice was almost a whisper. "I've waited 20 years to open this." He carefully broke the seal. Inside were several documents. A birth certificate, a family photograph, and the results of a DNA test. Elena reached for them. Her hands trembled. Her eyes scanned the page, then stopped. Everything around her seemed to disappear. She looked at the birth certificate again. Then the DNA report. Then back at Lorenzo. Her voice barely existed. "No." She shook her head. "No." Lorenzo stepped closer. "I'm sorry." She looked down once more. Name, Elena Maria De Luca. Her breathing became uneven. "This." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm not." "You are." "No." The hospital records were altered. "No." "You never died." Her knees weakened. Lorenzo caught her before she collapsed. She pushed him away. "Don't touch me." Her voice cracked through the silence. "My whole life." Tears filled her eyes. "My whole life was a lie." He nodded once. The pain on his face was unmistakable. "I wanted to tell you." "Then why didn't you?" "Because the people who took you." His voice broke for the first time. "Were waiting for me to make that mistake." The room fell silent. Rain continued pounding the ground far above them. Lorenzo picked up an old photograph. It showed the smiling woman from earlier. She held a toddler in her arms. "This is your mother." Elena stared at the picture. She had no memory of the woman. "Before she died." Lorenzo's voice became distant. "She put you in my arms." His fingers tightened around the photograph. She knew someone inside the family had betrayed us. Elena slowly looked up. "She made me promise." He swallowed hard. "That no matter what happened, I would keep you alive. A tear rolled down Elena's cheek. You've known. All this time. Every birthday. Every school. Every apartment. I watched from a distance. You watched me. I protected you. You let me hate you. Yes. Why? His answer came without hesitation. Because hatred kept you alive. Silence filled the room. Not awkward. Heartbreaking. Elena looked into his eyes. For the first time, she saw not a mafia king, but a man carrying 2 decades of guilt. Before either of them could speak again, Lorenzo's secure phone vibrated. He answered immediately. Sophia. Only static answered. Then, a distorted voice. She's with you. Lorenzo's expression hardened. Who is this? A familiar voice replied. One Elena recognized instantly. Victor. So, Victor said calmly. You finally told her. Elena's heart stopped. Victor. She grabbed the phone. Victor, what are you talking about? He laughed softly. I told you once, Elena. Dangerous men know how to earn trust. She frowned. What? I just never told you. Which dangerous man I meant. The line went silent. Elena stared at the phone. No. She shook her head. No. Lorenzo was already moving. We have to leave. Wait. She grabbed his arm. Victor would never. A loud explosion shook the underground vault. The lights flickered. Concrete dust filled the air. The emergency exit alarms activated. Someone had found them. Lorenzo drew his pistol. They're inside. The reinforced vault door began to shake violently. Metal groaned under repeated impacts. Boom. 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 Elena looked from the trembling door. To the phone still in her hand. To the DNA report bearing the name Elena Maria De Luca. Her entire world had collapsed in less than 10 minutes. Outside the vault, a familiar voice echoed through the corridor. Calm. Warm. Almost comforting. Elena. Victor called. You don't need to hide from me. Lorenzo stepped in front of her. His pistol aimed squarely at the vault door. The pounding stopped. Then Victor spoke again. Softly. Like a loving father. I've spent 20 years protecting you. A pause. And now. His voice turned colder than she'd ever heard. It's time you came home. The reinforced vault door shuddered under another violent impact. Boom. 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 Steel bolts groaned. Concrete cracked. Then, silence. Lorenzo raised his hand, signaling Elena to stay behind him. His pistol remained steady. A mechanical click echoed through the chamber. The vault's emergency override had been activated from outside. Slowly, the heavy door began to slide open. Victor Kane stood in the entrance. His expensive charcoal suit was dusted with concrete, but his posture remained perfectly composed. Around him stood a dozen armed men dressed in tactical gear. None of them spoke. Victor smiled warmly. The same smile that had comforted Elena since childhood. Only now. It looked terrifying. He took one slow step inside. Elena. His voice was as gentle as ever. You look frightened. Elena stared at him. I should be. Victor sighed. I hoped Lorenzo would spare you this. Lorenzo never lowered his weapon. One more step, Victor. Victor ignored him. Instead, he looked only at Elena. I've never lied to you. Elena's voice trembled. You told me Lorenzo murdered my parents. I told you what you needed to believe. The words landed like a physical blow. She blinked. What did you just say? Victor finally looked at Lorenzo. You've kept your promise. His smile faded. Now let me keep mine. Victor slowly removed his gloves. For the first time in Elena's life, he stopped pretending to be kind. I loved your parents. He chuckled softly. They were simply in my way. Elena couldn't breathe. You. Victor nodded. I arranged the attack. No. I altered the hospital records. No. I paid the officers who investigated the murders. Her knees weakened. No. I raised you to hate the wrong man. His calmness was more horrifying than rage. I needed someone close enough to destroy Lorenzo from the inside. He smiled. And you did exactly what I trained you to do. Tears streamed down Elena's face. Every birthday, every comforting hug, every lesson, every promise, every memory. Poisoned. You used me. Victor tilted his head. I perfected you. Victor extended one hand toward Elena. Come with me. She didn't move. We can still be a family. Silence. Lorenzo remained between them. Victor's expression darkened. He'll never love you the way I do. Elena slowly wiped away her tears. My parents. Her voice shook. Did they suffer? Victor answered without hesitation. For only a few minutes. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Victor smiled. I wanted them alive long enough to understand they had lost. The room fell deathly silent. Elena lowered her head. Victor smiled again. He believed she had broken. He believed he had won. Then, she slowly stepped forward. Past Lorenzo. Victor smiled wider. I knew you understand. She stopped halfway between them. Her voice was almost calm. You taught me something. Victor nodded proudly. I know. She looked directly into his eyes. You taught me how monsters hide behind love. The smile disappeared from Victor's face. Victor raised his pistol. Everything happened at once. His men opened fire. Lorenzo shoved Elena behind a stone pillar. Gunfire exploded through the vault. Marble shattered. Glass cases burst apart. Family photographs scattered across the floor. Lorenzo fired with deadly precision. 2 attackers fell. Another rushed forward. Sophia appeared through the emergency tunnel behind Victor. Blood stained her shoulder. She fired twice. Another gunman dropped. Victor turned toward her. You were always loyal. He fired once. Sophia collapsed. Elena screamed. Lorenzo rushed forward. Victor aimed again. This time, at Elena. Lorenzo saw it. Without hesitation, he stepped between them. The gunshot echoed. Lorenzo staggered. His white shirt bloomed red. Time seemed to stop. Lorenzo. Elena caught him before he hit the ground. He smiled weakly. He struggled to breathe. Sorry. She shook her head violently. No. For every lie. No. I would have done it again. His voice faded. If it meant you lived. Victor slowly approached. His pistol still raised. It's over. Elena looked down. Lorenzo's blood covered her hands. She remembered everything. The attacks. The rescues. The sleepless nights. The hidden room. The promise to her mother. The man she'd hated. Had spent 20 years protecting her. Victor stopped only a few feet away. Move. Elena gently laid Lorenzo on the floor. Then, she stood. Victor smiled. Good girl. She slowly picked up Lorenzo's fallen pistol. Victor chuckled. I knew you'd choose me. She raised the gun. Victor smiled. Then, she aimed it directly at him. His smile vanished. You don't get to call yourself my family. Victor laughed. You won't shoot. You made one mistake. What? You thought you taught me everything. Tears filled her eyes. You taught me revenge. She tightened her grip. Lorenzo taught me something better. Victor frowned. What? Truth. Police sirens echoed above the estate. Victor's expression changed. For the first time. Fear. Lorenzo had planned for this. Every conversation. Every hidden document. Every financial record. Every confession. Everything Victor had stolen had already been copied and transmitted to federal authorities before the attack began. Victor looked toward the emergency exit. Too late. Armed federal agents stormed the vault. Federal agents, drop your weapon. Victor fired wildly. Agents returned fire. A bullet struck Victor's shoulder. He collapsed onto the stone floor. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. As agents dragged him away, he looked back at Elena. Hatred replaced every trace of warmth. You would have been nothing without me. Elena met his gaze without flinching. No. A quiet strength settled over her. I finally know who I am. Victor lowered his head. For the first time, he had nothing left to say. 6 months later, the DeLuca estate looked different. The armed checkpoints were gone. The underground vault had become a memorial honoring those lost to betrayal and violence. Under Elena's leadership and Lorenzo's guidance, the DeLuca empire underwent a complete transformation. Every criminal operation was dismantled, corrupt alliances were severed, and the family's immense resources were redirected into legitimate global businesses, charitable foundations, and programs supporting children who had lost their families to organized crime. Justice extended beyond Victor's arrest. The evidence Lorenzo had quietly collected over many years led to the prosecution of officials, financiers, and accomplices who had helped conceal the truth. The conspiracy that stole Elena's childhood was finally exposed. Lorenzo stood on the mansion balcony, overlooking the river. The bullet had nearly taken his life. Months of rehabilitation had left a faint stiffness in his movements. Elena walked beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. The evening breeze carried the scent of blooming roses from the gardens below. Finally, she reached for his hand. This time, he didn't hesitate. He held it. I spent 15 years trying to destroy you, she said quietly. Lorenzo smiled faintly. I know. She looked at the city skyline. I almost let hatred steal the only person who never stopped fighting for me. He turned toward her. You didn't. She rested her head gently against his shoulder. No more secrets. He nodded. No more secrets. Far below, children laughed in the gardens where fear had once ruled. The camera slowly pulled away from the balcony. The mansion grew smaller. The city lights stretched endlessly into the distance. And Elena's final words lingered like a promise. Revenge gave me a reason to survive, but the truth finally taught me how to live. Until the next twist, This is Velvet Whisk Stories, where every secret has a price and every story has a unique plot twist that changes everything. Don't forget to subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Let's stay connected.